All right, fellas, welcome back to the second episode of the 2023-2024 NFL season predictions. Last episode, I did the NFC West, and I went through each team's, their record predictions, and I touched on some reasons why I think they'll be good, reasons why they'll be bad. This episode, I'm going to be doing the NFC East. Originally, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do things, but I think I'm just going to go through and do all of the NFC divisions, and then I'll go ahead and do all the AFC divisions. And then we'll do playoffs and obviously the Super Bowl predictions. I don't really want to waste too much time getting into it. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like. If you want to subscribe, that'd be great. If you think I'm stupid and you don't agree with me, let me know in the comments. And if you do agree with me, let me know in the comments. I like to talk ball, so if you want to go ahead and say that I don't know nothing and I'm dumb, then, you're more than welcome to do that. But getting right into the NFC East here, winning the division, I have the Eagles, and I have them going 12-5. I don't think that they're going to be as good as they were last year, which, I mean, it's a pretty high bar to have. Their schedule, I'd argue, is a bit harder this year than it was last year. They play the Chiefs, they play the Niners, they play the Bills, some decent opponents in there. But main reason for the regression that I have is they lost some pieces. Miles Sanders on offense is not a huge loss, but their running game was so good last year, and I don't think DeAndre Swift is that good. Admittedly, he's an okay scat back. He's good in the receiving game. I don't think he's really that good with running between the tackles. I think his vision's really bad. Rashad Penny, when he's healthy, he's good. It's just he's not really healthy all too often. So I think losing Miles Sanders is going to hurt their run game. I do think there's a world where Jalen Hurts could have like 1,000 rushing yards and win MVP and throw for like 3,800, have 1,000 on the ground and like 45 total touchdowns. But losing Miles Sanders and then also Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson getting a year older, I just kind of expect the run game to take somewhat of a step back, which means that the pass game could be incredible this year, or it could kind of be about the same, which, again, it's the whole reason for the regression. It's nothing crazy, 12-5, compared to what they were last year. It's only a 1-win difference. Moving to their defense, though, they did lose some decently big pieces. T.J. Edwards, Kazir White, both off-ball backers who I think played really well last year, especially T.J. Edwards. Nakobe Dean is slated to be their starter, and I think Nakobe Dean will be good, but how good right away? He's also kind of undersized, so there's a chance that their run defense isn't as great. They lost Javon Hargrave as well. Huge loss, in my opinion. Their D-line's still good. Like, I don't think that it's going to be it'll be a huge loss on paper, but when they actually play, the difference I don't think will actually be that big. The more I talk about it, the more I convince myself. Jalen Carter right now is slated as a starter, and I think Jalen Carter's incredible. I don't necessarily know if he's going to put it all together year one. If he does, I'll probably eat my words, and, Javon Hargrave leaving won't be that big of an issue. But, they have the guys, with Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, both already established really good guys. Jalen Carter, incredible prospect. Jordan Davis, incredible prospect. So there's a world where they are just as good as they were last year. They set the single-season record for sacks for a team. Literally a historic pass rush. So I do think it'll be hard to recreate the pass rush. But, there's a world where they can do it. They drafted Nolan Smith, so that could obviously help a little bit, rotating guys in. They lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who I think is really underrated. For whatever reason, a lot of NFL teams and just even like a lot of people in general really don't value the nickel corner position, which is why I think a lot of people haven't really been talking about his departure being as big as I think it will be. They did sign Terrell Edmunds, who is solid. He's nothing crazy. He's not bad. They re-signed James Bradbury. Obviously, Darius Slay is still on the team. Slay is still really good. He's getting a year older. Bradbury is also getting a year older. So there is a chance for some regression there. But overall, they'll still be good. They'll still probably be the main contender in the NFC. But I have them going 12-5. Moving on to going second in the division, which I'm kind of surprised. I said this about the Seahawks in my last episode, but I'm also kind of surprised with how many losses I ended up having the Cowboys going with. I have the Cowboys at 10-7, and talking to myself before I went through and I did all the predictions and I did each game. I really thought the Cowboys were gonna finish just right with the Eagles at that 12-5, or even better possibly, because their offense is really good. Dak's going to be healthy, obviously bearing any injuries. Tony Pollard, I think, should have had the keys to the backfield for the last 3 years. He won't get a huge workload in terms of a Derrick Henry workload just because he's a smaller guy, but he'll still be incredible getting all those reps. I mean, he was so good last year in the back half of the season. They had Stephon Gilmore, which I think was a huge addition in the secondary. Their run defense was really good. Their pass rush was really good. But their actual passing defense wasn't that great. The reason why it was not terrible was because the pass rush was so good. So it just helps things out, obviously. But let me pull up their schedule real quick. Yeah, so I mean they have a hard schedule because just like the Eagles, they play the same teams. But just for reference, going through their losses, I have them losing to the Jets, I have them losing to the Niners, I have them losing to the Giants, I have them losing to the Seahawks, that's at Seattle, I have them splitting with the Eagles, I have them losing to the Bills, and then I have them losing to the Lions. So, they could sweep the Giants theoretically, because I think the Giants are good, but I don't think they're a heavy hitter. But I mean, it's hard to do that with divisional opponents, because every year, a worse divisional opponent will be considered one of the best teams in the division, just because it's hard to beat a team twice in a year. I have them beating the Dolphins, which is a big thing because I'm big on the Dolphins. But with how I have the Eagles going 12-5, I think that's the Eagles' floor is really high and their ceiling is only 13 wins, which is still a really high ceiling. But the Cowboys, I could see the Cowboys winning 12 or 13 games at their ceiling, and the floor being 10 or 9, just because they do play a pretty tough schedule. They play the Cardinals, which is kind of a joke of a franchise right now. They play the Cardinals and they play the Rams, and those are the only two cupcake teams they play. They play the Commanders twice, obviously, but I don't think the Commanders are that terrible, which I'll get into. And then they play the Panthers, who I guess, depending who you're talking to, the Panthers are bad, the Panthers are decent. Like I said, though, I think this is kind of their floor where I have them going right now. Their ceiling could be right there with the Eagles at 12, 13 wins. They made improvements on offense and on defense. I still don't really like their off-ball backers. Leighton Vander Esch is pretty mid. Mozzie Smith was a good pickup. I like Mozzie Smith. He was their first-round choice. Their O-line, I still think there's some questions because Tyron Smith is old, and he obviously was injured. Tyler Smith could take a jump. Tyler Biotish is solid, and obviously Zach Martin. The tight end room does kind of concern me. But obviously they brought in Brandon Cooks, so maybe they just don't really have to utilize the tight ends as much because Jake Ferguson being your number one guy, I mean, he's a Wisconsin guy, so shout out. But, their defense on paper, I mean, off-ball linebackers is really just what scares me about this defense. Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Clark, those guys are, they kind of make it. I mean, Demarion Overshawn's a guy who I think has a chance to be a dog. He's got all the physical tools. He just kind of needs to put it together. But, yeah, with that being said, I have the Cowboys at 10-7. And moving on to the third team here with the Giants, I have them going 9-8. I've seen a lot of people really not hate on the Giants, but I've seen a lot of people predict the Giants to only win 6 or 7 games this year, which I mean, I could easily see that as their floor. I have them going 9-8. They play a pretty tough schedule because obviously, the whole NFC plays the same. Whole NFC East plays the same schedule. But I mean, there's winnable games. like just going through the wins, I guess I'll just run it down real quick. I have them beating the Cardinals. I have them beating the Seahawks. I have them beating the Commanders. I have them beating the Raiders. I have them splitting with the Cowboys. I have them beating the Commanders both times, which I think that could flip. I have them beating I have them beating the Patriots and the Packers, and then I have them beating the Rams, and then I have them beating the Eagles in Week 18 because I think there's going to be a situation kind of where Eagles are locked in at like the 2 seed or like the 1 seed, and the last week they're just going to sit their guys, similar to how it was last year. But I also think that the Giants, like, they kind of have the talent to beat a team like that if it's like a game in the trenches, you know, or if Daniel Jones plays a really good game, because a lot of the Giants' success kind of leans into how does Daniel Jones play. He had a pretty good year last year. He wasn't asked to do a ton of things. They improved their weapons. I think that's like pretty easily or pretty soundly accepted. You know, it's not like a crazy thing to say that their weapons improved. They have a ton of slot receivers, which I'm not really sure why. I mean, they have Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Cole Beasley, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard. I mean, those are all guys. Like Jalen Hyatt, you might say, isn't a slot receiver. He's just a pure deep threat, which I get that. But all the other guys, like, they're just small-bodied guys who play in the slots. So I don't know if they're planning on just having, like, an offense that's just all curls, all slants, all drag routes, all crossing routes, which, I mean, that was a decent amount of their offense last year. And, you know, when you have decent guys, it can work out well. But I think a lot of it rides, too, on what does the health of Saquon look like? How does he play? He just recently signed the 1-year deal for $11 million, which is only like $900K more than what the franchise tag would have been, which is interesting to me. But obviously they added Darren Waller. That's a big guy. Waller's good when he's healthy. Will he be healthy? He really hasn't been for the past couple of years, but I think Waller could have a decent year. Their O-line is solid. They drafted John Michael Schmitz, who I'm a big fan of, center out of Minnesota, I think it is off the top of my head. Their defense is on paper not crazy, but with Dayball and the coaching staff they have, I think they'll overperform. Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams are incredible. Kayvon Thibodeau, I think, is going to take a jump this year. Azeez Ojulari is a guy I like. Odura Jackson, solid. Xavier McKinney's really good. Deonte Banks was someone I really liked in the draft. So I think they did a really good job with the draft with addressing things they needed. My only concern is on offense that they don't really have an X. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins could be their X, but, like, he's not that great. Like, he's okay. Like, he's solid, but he's not a prototypical X. And unless they maybe plan to use Waller like that, and Waller's going to be the focal point of their offense, which could be the case. But I have them at 9 wins. I think their ceiling is probably like 11 wins, and I'd say their floor could be like 6, 7. It could be pretty low. If they deal with some injuries on defense, they don't really have crazy depth. And obviously, the whole point I was getting at with the offense, if Saquon gets injured, I think that throws a wrench in their season. Or if Daniel Jones regresses, if Daniel Jones can play like he did last year and Saquon stays healthy, I think they'll be okay. But going into the 4th team in this division, coming in last place, obviously, I have the Washington Commanders. And I have them going at 6, or excuse me, I have them going 6-11. And I've seen some people predict they're gonna win like 3 games, and I've seen some people predict they're gonna win like 11 games. And I think a lot of that depends on, like, what do you believe in Sam Howell? I think that Sam Howell could be pretty good. I think that he'll end up being their franchise guy, and I don't think that means he's going to be like a top 10 quarterback or anything, but I could see him being like a Kirk or like a Jared Goff, where he's like borderline that top 10, and like he's just really solid, and he, you know, you put weapons around him because they have a lot of young talent. Terry's really good, obviously. Jahan Dotson, I think, could be due for a big year. I mean, he's super talented. Curtis Samuel's talented. Their O-line, it's okay. Sam Cosmi's good. Charles Leno is okay. Andrew Wiley's okay. Their defense, obviously, is where you get excited. Chase Young, obviously, I think they were picking up the phone for trade packages, and I'm not a huge Chase Young guy, to be honest with you. I liked him in the draft, but he's been really injured, and when he hasn't been injured, he really hasn't been, like, great. He's been solid and okay, but he hasn't been, like, number 2 overall pick, kind of like expectations good when he's been playing. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen are great. Montez Sweat's great. Cody Barton, I think he just came over from the Seahawks. He's a solid off-ball backer. Jamin Davis is super athletic. He could be great if he puts it together. Their secondary's pretty solid. Kendall Fuller's good. Cameron Curl's really good. Emmanuel Forbes, there's some questions there. In a Fangio defense, he'll be great. But he's just like a... I could see Emmanuel Forbes being like a Trayvon Diggs, how Trayvon Diggs was a few years back, where he gets like 6 interceptions and houses 2 of them, but he gives up a ton of yards because that's just the kind of the game he plays. He's a crazy ball hawk. He's got great ball skills. Benjamin St-Juste is okay. I'm just trying to look at the other guys on their roster to get a feel for it. But their defense is the strong point. Obviously, it has been that way. I'd say pretty confidently they have a top 5 D line, probably a top 5 front 7 as well. A lot of it just relies on, does Sam Howell put it together? And say Sam Howell doesn't, I mean, they still have Jacoby Brissett. Brian Robinson is a solid back. He's not crazy. Obviously last year he was dealing with the whole gunshot and all that injury. So there's a real chance that he could come in and be a lot better this year than he was last year. On paper they have solid weapons, and a lot of it does come down to, is Sam Howell that guy? And like, how good does their O-line play as well? The games I have them winning, I have them beating the Cardinals, I have them beating the Bears, I have them beating the Eagles in Washington. Some people might say I'm crazy for that, but it goes back to the thing I said before with the Giants being the Cowboys. Every year, in every division, one of the bottom teams ends up beating the top teams, or at least makes it really close. I have them beating the Giants. I have them beating the Rams, and then I also have them beating the Jets, which that's another toss-up because depending how you are on the Jets could, factor into that a lot. But, looking at their schedule, obviously, they could beat a team like the Patriots. They could beat a team like the Seahawks. They could beat They could beat a team like the Broncos early on in the season. So say somehow 3 games bounce the other way and they end up with 9 wins. I think that's a really possible situation. I think that's where their ceiling's at, though, is like that 8 or 9. I don't think they're gonna get to double digits, and I think their floor is like 3 wins, 4 wins. I think they have a pretty low floor because if Howell is like flat out bad, well, I guess not, because Brissett's there and Brissett's okay. So yeah, I think their floor more at where I have them right now at 6, and their ceiling is probably at 9, and they'll fall somewhere between there. But I personally have them at 6. So just to recap, winning the division, I have the Eagles going 12-5. Coming in second place, I have the Cowboys going 10-7. Coming in third, I have the Giants going 9-8, and then rounding out the division, I have the Commanders going 6-11. If you guys disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd like to, like I said before, talk ball with you. I think the next one I'll probably end up doing the NFC North, which I think the next 2 ones are kind of controversial divisions more so. So I'm kind of looking forward to that because the last 2 ones, it's been pretty clear who's going to end up winning those divisions. But if you guys liked, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it. Subscribe too. If you have any suggestions, something you want to see in the future, if you have any comments, if you have any opinions, I'd be willing to listen to them. I'd love to listen to them. So make sure to go ahead and leave a comment. But with that being said, hope you have a good one. Peace out.